Okay, welcome in, one and all. Hope you all had a wonderful holiday season. I am now going to be previewing week 17 of the NFL season. The fact that we're in the last 2 weeks of the season is unbelievable. I can't believe how fast time really flies. It feels just like yesterday we had the open kickoff, and now we're only 2 weeks away from the regular season coming to an end. So on Thursday, the New York Jets will be heading into Cleveland to take on the Browns. The Jets are coming in this matchup sitting at 6-9. The postseason, there's no question that they're not going to be able to make it. Even if they were to win out their last two games, they'd have to rely on all the teams above them in the standings to also lose out their last two games. And I don't think anyone's squeaking in with an 8-9 record at this point in the season. Speaking of playoffs, the Cleveland Browns should be able to secure a victory and a playoff spot after this matchup, getting their 11th win of the season. They are currently sitting at 10-5, so it'd be very shocking if the Jets came in and upset the Browns and delayed their postseason aspirations. But I am going to give the edge to the Browns in this one. They should be able to secure, like I said, a victory. They should also be able to secure their wild card spot and 11th win of the year. So I am going to give the edge to the Browns in this matchup. All right, there's only one game on Saturday, but it's going to be very intriguing to say the least, as we have the Dallas Cowboys, and they're taking on the Detroit Lions. Probably one of the biggest games of the year for both of these squads. The Lions last week secured their first NFC North title ever. The last time they won out a division was back in '93 when they were part of the NFC Central Division. And in the last 30 years, let's put it this way, divisions have changed, teams have moved around. So this is a huge thing for the Detroit Lions. I'm sure once next season kicks off, they'll be more than happy to lower that banner. But I'm sure they would love to have more than that NFC North title hanging from their ceiling at the Ford Dome. As for the Dallas Cowboys, they are currently in a wild card position, just a game behind the Philadelphia Eagles. So this is a very critical game if they not only want to stay in contention for a playoff spot, but also fight for an NFC East crown. I'm sure they would love nothing more than that to be able to secure a victory at home. I will give the edge to the Cowboys in this matchup. I just believe they have a lot more to fight for. The Detroit Lions have already secured a top 4 seed guaranteed. Let's be honest, they've secured a top 3 seed because there's no way that anyone from the NFC South is going to overtake the Detroit Lions at this pace. So there's a lot of fight for the top 3 spots in that NFC. In the NFC spots, you have the 49ers, the Lions, and in third place, I believe it is. Who's in third? Philadelphia. So you have Philadelphia, San Francisco, and the Detroit Lions as your top 3 as of right now for your division leaders. So a very critical game for the Lions. If they want to be able to secure a potential number 2 spot, this would be a huge win for the Detroit Lions. But I will give the edge to the Cowboys on this matchup. I believe it's going to be very interesting, and it could very well take to week 18 to decide a winner of that NFC East. All right, all the rest of the games take place on Sunday. So let's get right to it. So the first game quite possibly could be a preview of like the AFC Championship game. And I know I'm maybe out of line. I can't always be correct, but I have a funny feeling that these two teams are no joke. And I'll get them on the screen right away. So the Miami Dolphins are heading into Baltimore to take on the Ravens. The Miami Dolphins are currently sitting at 11-4. The Ravens are currently sitting at 12-3. So a very critical game for both these teams. The Ravens have already secured a playoff spot. The Dolphins would love nothing more than to get a away victory and secure an AFC East crown. But I believe that will be delayed till at least week 18, unless the Bills happen to lose their week 17 matchup. Then the Dolphins would obviously secure the AFC crown. But I'm sure they would love to secure an AFC East crown, I apologize, with a victory rather than relying on other teams to defeat teams in their division. For the Ravens, if they get a victory over the Dolphins, they will secure the number 1 overall spot for the wild cards round, and that can go a long way in helping a team advance as far as they can in the postseason. Because if you get the number one spot, you're guaranteed a rest for that wild card round because the number 2 seed will play the number 7 seed and so on. So this is a huge game for both these teams. A lot of implications. A lot is at stake. If the Dolphins should happen to secure an away victory over the Ravens, they'd have to wait until week 18 to decide who is going to get that number 1 overall seed. But I do believe that Lamar Jackson, who is no doubt in the running for MVP, will get the victory for the Ravens, and they should secure the number 1 spot for the wild card round. All right. The next matchup, speaking of the Bills, they're next on deck as they're playing host to the New England Patriots. Excuse me. Okay. The Patriots coming into this matchup sitting at 4-11, therefore the postseason is completely out of range. But they're coming in red hot winning the last 2 games over the Steelers and Broncos respectively. As for the Buffalo Bills, I know up until about a month ago I was saying this team's a little wishy-washy. They win one, they lose one, they win one, they lose one. They were at one point, they were coming in sitting at 6-6. Now they've gone on like a 3-game winning streak to prove myself and a lot of other doubters wrong. So this team could be very dangerous when it comes to the postseason. And I believe they should be able to secure a victory over their long-hated AFC East rival, despite the fact that the Patriots are playing pretty well. Like I said, they have secured 2 big victories over the Steelers and Broncos, so they can still win games. It's just a little too late in the season to be winning games at this point, especially if you want to try and get a high draft pick in the offseason. I'm going to give the edge to the Bills in this one. Like I said, they are playing red hot. They're playing out of their minds, trying to prove a lot of people wrong that they can be a very dangerous squad. Even if they do come in as a wild card contender, or as a wild card spot, they can be a very dangerous team despite playing away from home. All right, the next matchup takes place in the Windy City as we have the Chicago Bears, and they're playing host to the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are coming in this matchup sitting at 7-8, and the Bears are coming in this matchup sitting at 6-9. So for the Bears, they're playing pretty decently as of late, considering that at the start of the season, they looked like they could not win a single game. Now they're only 3 games below 500, and if they can possibly secure a win here, they could improve to 7-9, which would be absolutely absurd. As for the Falcons, they're still fighting for a playoff spot. Hell, they're even fighting for a division crown because the Buccaneers are at 8-7, the Falcons and Saints are 7-8 respectively. So there's like a 1-game difference between first and second place in that division. A very weak NFC South, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. And not just that, but that wild card spot is still up for grabs, as the number 7 seed currently has a 7-8 record as well. So just the fact that they're below 500 and they're not only competing for a playoff spot, but a division crown at the same time, this is a very big game for the Atlanta Falcons. And despite how much pressure is on this team to succeed and the expectations of this team, I'm going to give the edge to the Bears. I just think there's something about this Bears squad. Justin Fields, like I said, he's playing pretty decently, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. And I believe the Bears should secure a home victory over the Atlanta Falcons. Now, obviously, if the Atlanta Falcons lose, this could be very critical to their postseason aspirations. But if the number 7 seed in that division or in that conference happens to lose, there could be a lot of teams fighting for that final playoff spot next week. But as for this particular week, I will give the edge, like I said, to the Chicago Bears. All right, off to the AFC South, where we have the Texans. They're taking on the Titans. So for the Titans, there's no postseason action this upcoming year. For the Texans, they're fighting for a playoff spot. The Titans are currently sitting at 5-10. The Houston Texans are sitting at 8-7. That AFC wildcard spot is wildly crowded. A lot of teams with 9, 8 wins respectively. So it's going to be a dogfight to be able to secure a wildcard spot in that AFC wildcard spot. But not just that. When it comes to that division crown as well, there's like a 3-way tie for first place in that division between the Texans, the Jaguars, and the Colts. So a huge victory for the huge game for the Houston Texans to not only secure a playoff spot, but to potentially still play in contention for a division crown is just out of this world. With that being said, I will give the edge to Houston. I just think that they will have a bounce back game, and they should be able to secure their ninth win of the season and stay in contention for not only a wild card spot, but potentially a AFC South championship as well. Staying in the AFC South, we have the Colts, who I just mentioned, and they're playing against the Las Vegas Raiders. Okay, so for the Raiders, they had a huge victory last week over their AFC West rival in the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe it was 20-14. They're coming in this matchup sitting at 7-8, and as for the Colts, like I just mentioned previously, they are sitting at 8-7. Excuse me. Tough loss last week for the Colts, by the way. For this one here, I gotta say, I'm going to give the edge to the Raiders. There's just something about this squad. Their defense is legit. I mean, if you can hold Patrick Mahomes to 14 points, that goes to show a lot about the character of your defense and how, even though he's supposed to be this spectacular quarterback and this team's supposed to be a dynasty, they can easily be shut down. And this year, the Chiefs have been very inconsistent. When I get to their preview, I will talk more about that team as well. But for the Raiders, they're a very good team. There's no question about it. They're coming from a Broncos fan. Oh, man. It pains me to say that. But they are currently sitting second in that division. I don't want to say the playoffs are completely out of reach, as a lot of teams in the AFC, like I said, have 9-8 wins. But if the Raiders happen to pull off a victory and get back to even, it can make for a very intriguing Week 18 matchup. And I believe they should secure their 8th win. As much as it pains me to say that, as much as I would love for the Colts to get the victory, and the Colts very well could win, there's just something with this Raiders squad that you can't count them out. Let's put it that way. So I will give the edge to the away team in this particular matchup. All right, the next matchup takes place still in the AFC South between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Carolina Panthers. There we go. Okay. The Jaguars are coming in this matchup sitting at 8-7. The Carolina Panthers are sitting at 2-13. I'm going to give the edge to the Jaguars in this matchup. I think they should be able to bounce back after a tough couple of losses and still be able to secure a first place position when it comes to Week 18 of the NFL season. This is the battle of the cats. Anything can happen. Hell, the Panthers could come in here and upset the Jaguars. I wouldn't even be surprised about this at this point. At one point, it looked like the Jaguars were going to roll away with this division, just like the Titans did a year ago. It looked like this division was theirs. It was locked up, but because of inconsistent play and maybe injuries can play a factor as well, this team just does not look like a threat, in my opinion. Even if they secure a playoff spot, I would have a little faith in this team advancing far in the postseason. All right, the next matchup takes place in New York. We have the Giants, and they're playing against the Los Angeles Rams. Okay, so the Los Angeles Rams currently sitting at 8-7. The New York Giants have dropped to 5-10, so therefore the Giants are out of contention when it comes to the postseason action. Even if they were to win their last 2 games, they would have to finish 7-10. And again, a lot of teams in that NFC wildcard would have to finish with the same record. So I'm not getting my hopes up for the Giants to come back and get a wildcard spot. Speaking of a wildcard spot, not all hope is lost for the Rams, as they currently are sitting in the number 5th or 6th seed, respectively. So therefore, a huge win for this team could go a long way in securing a postseason berth for the Rams after missing the playoffs last year. This would be a bounce back season for them, to say the least. And speaking of postseason, I believe they should be able to make it postseason. And with that being said, I will give them the edge in this contest. All right, the next matchup takes place in the NFC East as well, where we have the Arizona Cardinals, and they're heading in. There we go. to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. Cardinals, Eagles. So Battle of the Birds. The Cardinals, I apologize, are coming in this matchup at 2-13, so there's no, 3-12, I apologize, so there's no postseason action in the state of Arizona for football, at least. And speaking of playoff and football, this is a critical game for the Philadelphia Eagles. They currently have the number 1 seed in that NFC East. 11-4 is where they're at, and I believe they should be able to secure their 12th win of the season and potentially pursue a back-to-back NFC East championship. But if they happen to lose to the Cardinals and say the Cowboys win, then there's a lot up for grabs in week number 18 of the NFL season. So if you're an Eagles fan, you want to get a victory now, because if you have to rely on week 18 to secure a playoff spot, that's going to say a lot about the character of this team moving forward into the postseason. All right, the next matchup takes place in the NFC South, and probably one of the biggest games for either of these teams, as we have, there we go, the New Orleans Saints, and they are heading into Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. Okay, so the Saints are coming in this matchup sitting at 7-8, and the Buccaneers are currently sitting at 8-7 on top of that division. So a very critical game for both of these teams. Obviously, if the Buccaneers happen to secure a victory, then they can almost guarantee that they would secure a NFC South crown as long as the Falcons were to lose their respective games. So if the Falcons and Saints both lose, the Buccaneers automatically get that NFC South division. If the Saints happen to pull off an away victory, or say the Falcons win and Buccaneers win, then there could be a lot up for stakes next week. I'm going to give the edge to the Buccaneers in this matchup. Again, despite the fact that throughout a good chunk of the season, they did not look like a very good team, they're starting to get red hot at the best of times, especially this late in the season. So I will give the edge to the Buccaneers. They should be able to secure their 9th win of the season and potentially a back-to-back, or if they were to secure an NFC South crown, this would be their 3rd in a row. Just to be the first without Brady at the helms. All right. The next matchup takes place in Washington, where we have the Commanders. They are playing host to the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are coming in this matchup sitting at 11-4, already secured a postseason berth. I believe they've also secured the NFC West as well, because both the Seahawks, who I will get to in just a second, and the Rams only have 8 wins respectively. And with the last 2 games of the season, the 49ers, they've already clinched that NFC West crown. As for the Washington Commanders, they're coming in this matchup sitting at 4-11, so there's no postseason action in the state of DC. Big game here for this 49ers squad if they want to be able to secure a top 3 spot in that NFC, and more importantly, the number 1 seed, as I talked about with the Baltimore Ravens, and the AFC, can go a long way in securing a rest. So if the 49ers happen to win this game and say the Eagles were to lose, I believe the 49ers would secure a first-round bye. The one big story from this one is obviously Chase Young, who got traded from Washington to San Fran, will obviously be playing against his former team for the first time. So I'm sure there'll be some mixed feelings, emotions to say the least, when it's Chase playing against his former team and going into his old home. So I am going to give the edge to the 49ers in this matchup. They should be able to secure their 12th win of the season. All right. Off to Seattle, where we have the Seahawks, and they are playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So both these teams are coming in this matchup sitting at 8-7, and both these teams are obviously fighting for a playoff spot. The Steelers are, I believe, in contention for a wild card position for the AFC, and speaking of the Seahawks, they're also in contention for the NFC wildcard spot as well. So a victory for either of these teams can go a long way in securing a playoff berth. A loss for either of these teams can really put a dent in in hopes of making it in to the playoffs this upcoming season. For the Steelers, like I said, they should be able to pull off a victory here, especially after getting a big win against the Bengals last week. But again, this team looked like they were going to be absolutely dominant, and then they lose to teams they should have beaten. As for the Seahawks, they're starting to turn the corner and look like a decent threat, if I wanted to say that, to say the least. They currently do have the number 5th and number 6th spot in that NFC wildcard spot. So even if the Seahawks were to happen to lose, because that NFC wildcard is so poor, they could still see themselves in a playoff position, even if they were to lose at home. But I believe that 12th man can be very critical and helpful, especially this late in the year. So I will give the edge to the home team, and I believe the Seahawks should get their 9th win of the year. All right, the next matchup takes place in the AFC West. We have the Bengals, the Joe Burrow-less Bengals, taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, so the Bengals are coming in this matchup at 8-7. Just like the Steelers, they're both fighting for a wild card position. And as for the Chiefs, despite having a 9-6 record, this is probably the poorest Chiefs team I've seen in the Patrick Mahomes era. And hell, even when Alex Smith was at the helm, they didn't look this poor this late in the season. So they did lose to the Raiders last week. So both these teams are not only looking to get back in the win column, but both these teams are looking to potentially secure a playoff spot at the same time. So this is going to be a very critical game for both of these teams. I'm going to go out on a limb and say upset alert. I believe the Bengals, because they're fighting for their playoff lives, whereas the Chiefs can almost guarantee an AFC West crown unless they happen to lose the last 2 weeks and the Raiders happen to take over that division. I think they still have the AFC West in the bag. But as for the Bengals, like I said, they are fighting for their playoff lives. And if they want to try to see any postseason action, they're going to have to beat the team that they are facing in Week 17. And like I said, this will be my one upset of the week. I could very well be wrong, and the Chiefs can roll over the Bengals. I would not be surprised at that in the least. But something about this Bengals squad, even though they don't have Joe Burrow, they can be a team that is slightly dangerous. All right. Staying in the AFC West, we have the Los Angeles Chargers, and they're heading into Denver to take on the Broncos. So for the Chargers, a lost season. They're coming in this matchup sitting at 5-10. So therefore, the postseason is not even in sight at all. You have to wait till 2024 to even talk about that. Speaking of the playoffs, the Broncos' hopes have pretty much gone down the tubes. It pains me to say that, being a huge Broncos fan, had so much hype when they went on the 5 or 6 game winning streak. I'm like, finally, this team is back. And now it's looking like there's not going to be any postseason action in Denver for the 9th year in a row. The big news is Steedham will be the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson has been benched for the last 2 games of the season. So it almost looks like this marriage between Sean Payton and Russell Wilson is coming to an absolute crash and a divorce, as it's looking like the Broncos are looking to try to move on from Russell Wilson. And that's crazy to think that he's only in year 2 of a 5 or 6 year deal. It looked like this was going to be a long-term marriage between Russell Wilson and the Broncos, but it just hasn't worked out. We'll put it that way. So I'm sure there's going to be some bitterness between both these teams. Obviously, the Broncos had a lot of hype and hope when they did trade for Russell Wilson when he was with Seattle, that he could bring some of that magic to Denver. But unfortunately, he has not been the same Russell Wilson that he was in Seattle. So with that being said, I'm going to give the edge to the Chargers in this matchup. I mean, the Broncos should hopefully get a victory, and it would be lovely to see them finish with a 9-8 record. But I don't know. With the way they played against the Patriots, I mean, if you lose to the Patriots, and no disrespect to the Patriots, but if you're losing to the Patriots, who only had 3 wins at the time, what are the chances you beat a 4 or 5 win team? Shows a lot about your team. If the games you should be winning, you're not. So in all reality, the Broncos should be able to get back to get back to 500. Wow, I can't even talk. They should be able to get back to 500 football, but with the way they've been playing lately, I think they've lost 3 of the last 4. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if they lost to the Chargers, since they already beat the Chargers at home. So I'm sure the Chargers, in the back of their mind, would be like, we'd love to go into Denver and get a W there and split the season 1-1. All right, enough rambling on about my team. All right, so the last game takes place on Sunday night. There are no Monday games, I believe, the rest of the year. So we're heading into Minnesota. We have the Vikings. They're playing host to one of their NFC North rivals in the Green Bay Packers. So both these teams are coming in this matchup sitting at 7-8. A lot is on the line for both these squads. Like I said prior, that the number 7 seed in that wild card race has 7 wins, as do the Packers and the Vikings. So a win for either of these teams could potentially keep their playoff hopes alive. A loss for either of these teams, and you can pretty much flush your playoff window down the toilet. I'm going to give the edge to the Packers in this matchup. There's just something about this team that, despite the fact that they lost, or that they said they did win last week, but they were, before playing the Panthers, they were 6-8. So the fact that they got a win last week to keep their window open says a lot about this character of this team, and I am going to give, like I said, the edge to the Packers in this matchup. They should be able to get back to 500 football, which will make for a very intriguing Week 18 matchup, and it's going to show a lot about this team as to whether or not they see any playoffs this year. All right, that should take care of my Week 17 preview for the NFL season. I just want to make a quick little note that my overall record for picks through the first 16 weeks of the season are 134 and 86. So not too shabby. 134 and 86. I will jot that down. So we'll see where my record stands on Monday. So I will upload a video on Monday because there's no games on Monday night for the NFL season. I will have a recap of Week 17. And if I don't make any videos for football until then, I want to wish you all a happy new year, and we'll see you in 2024. As always, if you're new to this channel and you like this type of content, I do attempt to do videos on the daily. If you like what you see, hit the sub button. I'd be very grateful and very appreciative. And as always, take care.